It's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. So before we get into your life of coaching and being a physician, I want to know first and foremost, we're getting on the 5 year anniversary of this pandemic, and it did so many things medically, psychologically, overall for all of us. How much of living through that time period has reverberated and become a part of your world and what you do today?
I think it's a twofold question, because in emergency medicine, being on the ground, it was terrifying. And this isn't, I don't want to make this a political discussion on how we think it came about. It doesn't matter. I saw people dying every day. And I saw people dying alone every day, which was always a big thing with me as an emergency physician on the ground, that no one died alone. Now they didn't die alone. We were there. No one died alone with me. And but they didn't have family. So it was heartbreaking. It was just something I'd never seen. I hadn't lived through that before. And so from an emergency physician standpoint, it was watching patients go through things like that, watching their families go through things like that. And then the flip side of being terrified that I was going to take this new disease home to my family, to my
Yeah,
child. My husband's also an emergency physician, so it was scary.
yeah,
But the flip side, and what I saw with people connecting online or learning to really connect remotely because they had to, whether it was patients and families or schools and students, that was the change that I saw that was amazing. Meetings moved online and didn't miss a beat. We kept going. We kept our connections. That I think was a little a lot of people I think didn't see it coming. People learned to shift. We learned to change the way we did things and learn to truly connect, even though, no, I cannot give you a hug today. But you know what? I want you to feel from me that I'm actually sitting with you in this room because we are. Our energy is connected.
yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about what you do right now in 2025. If I put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, it's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I play a doctor on social media. No, that's what my kid thinks I do, so that's okay.
Yeah,
I run a I founded a lifestyle medicine practice that is completely remote. That was my medical shift. I went from emergency medicine clinical in-person full-time to full-time remote lifestyle medicine. I'm also a sports nutritionist, longtime triathlon coach, athlete. So that was perfect wheelhouse shift for me. So I do that. In my practice, we found out that there was no great asynchronous telemedicine technology platform. So we made one. So that's another one of the other things that I do. But first and foremost, I've been coaching for 30 years. I love to coach. I love to teach. I actually am the coach in my practice for the patients. I joke that we lure people in with medication and then coach them to death. So we do education, we do community, we have happy hour every Wednesday where my patients come in and we hang out like
yeah.
this.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream life?
I wanted to be a bus driver in third grade.
All right. Very cool. So, what happened? Take me back to your childhood. What were the seeds of being a coach and a teacher and a physician? How did all of this become you?
So where I am, where I really am, where 2025 is going is I spent the first half of my career taking care of patients. I'm going to spend the second half taking care of the people who take care of patients. So I'm shifting into really bringing all that together into physician coaching. So I think what the bus driver thing cracks me up because I love Mrs. Knapp. She was my bus driver, and it shows you how important some those connections are. I wanted to do what she did. I really do not want to drive a bus. But, I had my Fisher Price medical kit when I was a kid. Always wanted to be a doctor. Then my grades told me no. So, I had a little too much fun I grew up in Buffalo, New York. So,
Okay.
wings and beer. That's what it
Yeah.
was. And so wings and beer and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So grades said no, you won't be a doctor. And my attitude said, oh, wait, watch this. So I went to grad school. I was an athletic trainer, for practiced full time for 6 years in athletic training, then shifted into going back to medical school, had to retake some things, because my grades said no. And so it did. It got into medical school, went to medical school in Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, did residency in Tampa, Florida, and have not moved back north since.
So how did you get to a point as a physician where you were desensitized enough? I always think about that when you get in those situations. And it's not just seeing things from the body standpoint. It's dealing with the emotions and the spectrum of what you have to deal with. How do you compartmentalize and do that so that you can operate at a high level?
I don't. I'll be honest. I actually follow a couple emergency physicians. I follow a lot, but one of them, she is so good at her job, and but she's also so caring and feeling. I got to a point where it was very hard for me to compartmentalize, whether it was taking care of the staff in the department after a trauma, or God forbid, we lost a patient that shouldn't have died that day. Shouldn't have, right? Like it's all on me. But
Right.
we do what we can. Um, but I couldn't. I almost never could. Every time I would open up that box to put another memory in, the ghosts of the other patients came out. And I started revisiting a lot of those. And it was a lot of emotional trauma. It's emotional shrapnel, really. And I don't compartmentalize really well. And my identity was very wrapped up in being an emergency medicine physician overnight in a level 2 trauma center. I did that full time for 13 years in the same location. And that became my identity. That's not good. That is not good.
Yeah.
It, takes away from your home life. It takes away from your health. It takes away from a lot of things when you do that.
So I've talked to other physicians out there and I've asked them the same question. And they always have a pretty good answer about how they do compartmentalize it. They don't let it get to them. So my question to you is when you run into those people that can do that, are you inspired by that? Do you feel like that's a part of the ecosystem of what you're dealing with that helps you as a teacher imbue that into the younger doctors and physicians?
I do admire that in people, not because I know that they are caring, but it is a compartment and this is not their family member. I get very, very empathetic. I can form relationships very quickly with patients and colleagues and clients, and I get very empathetic and kind of energetically aligned where my husband's an emergency physician as well. He is very good at he's very good at compartmentalizing. Just he goes to work, he comes home, he does his work very well, and then he lets it go. He actually lets it go. And so even when I went part-time on the ground, I was still thinking about hospital process, how to make this better, how could I make the group better? It lives in my brain. That sort of wanting to make things better lives in my brain. And I just didn't have the kind of influence that I wanted to have, I guess. So it does. My ideal client is a shift working physician who's 3 to 5 years out, because my goal isn't to take them out of medicine and give them the side gig. I want to keep them on the ground for as long as possible. I want to give them a financial decompression so they can maybe work part-time if they want. They can, just decompress their time and however they choose, but we need them on the ground.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't the best person for that anymore.
So one of the most dramatized genres on TV is either medicine, being in a hospital, or being in a courtroom with lawyers. And when you see these shows, there's always these magic moments, whether it's funny like Scrubs or St. Dennis or something like that. There's always these moments where they bring it all down and the emotional music plays in the background. When you started your journey and you were there, what was the moment for you where you really where you were the mirror of humanity was put up in front of you and it had to humble you and make you grow?
Every shift, I'll
Yeah.
be honest. Every shift. I remember when a year, I knew it was at the first hospital I worked at out of residency. And I was, we had a 16-year-old trauma a couple days before her birthday, self-inflicted trauma. And she chose to take her own life in a way that females don't normally do. It was brutal. And I remember I sat with my hands on the bed, very spiritual, not particularly religious, but I sat with my hands on the bed and I knew I couldn't save her, but I just didn't want to stop trying. And I sat and I said, God, you need to help me through this one. I don't know what to do next. I can't do this. Like I couldn't help her. She was very successful in her last act. And I wanted to honor that. And I didn't know how. And that was one of the first times that I actually paused long enough. Because you're rushing, right? You get out of residency and you're going. I'm a new attending. I don't know what I'm doing. There's so many things going on. You're just learning to be a doctor. And I sat with my hands on the bed and I thought, God, you got to help me. What do I do? And I called it. It wasn't me
Yeah.
pronouncing, it was
Right.
just I was stating the obvious.
Yeah.
But that was one of the first moments that I thought, this is a big deal.
Yeah. And that's the thing that you just mentioned. It's like when you get into this medical school mindset, it's like boom, boom, boom. It's fast, fast. All these things are thrown at you. And then again, I'm going to go back to the dramatization. There's always that real hard edge doctor or mentor. How necessary are those kinds of personalities to help the younger folks like realize how difficult it is to get through it?
Complex question because I think that I love those. Those are my people. The trauma surgeons, the hard-edged people are the people that I love. And but they can never teach you. It's like parenting or medical school or marriage. No matter what people tell you of how it will feel, you will never understand how it feels until you are there.
Yeah. Who's been that hero for you? Every day you do this, there's got to be like an inspirational bedrock that helps. Who is that for you?
My dad,
Yeah.
it's funny. He jokes. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a businessman like my dad, after I wanted to be the bus driver. Grew out of that, thank goodness. And I wanted to be a businessman like my dad. And he always wanted to be a doctor like his daughter. So it was kind of funny. And we've talked about this a lot recently. And he lives in Florida now. He's like, I'm never wearing a suit again, but he's retired. But I used to go with him to the office. He's in computers and he did networking and self-taught. Like that was, he took something and he learned it and he made a life out of it, a very lucrative, he became like Seth Godin's linchpin. He became the linchpin. He produced value in the world
Yeah.
out of nothing, right? No college education. I think he went to a semester, but he learned because he knew how can I make this better. And he told me I would just when he was in management, he said I would just find the biggest pile of crap and jump into it and solve it. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's where I get it from.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, um, if you could meet one person alive out there that's whether they're doing what you're doing or otherwise that you find inspirational, that might help you on your path, your journey, who would you love to meet and hang out with and ask some questions to?
It's funny to say that because when people ask who would you have lunch with, whatever. I usually answer Elon Musk, but I'm not asking him for parenting advice. Um, but I do. Dan Martell is actually one person. He is one of my coaches that I would love, and I've done this before with him in a group setting, but I would love to sit one-on-one and even delve into the emotional part of what makes him tick. Now, the good part is he shares most of it publicly online. So I would probably pick Elon Musk because he shakes things up. We don't just do things because it's the way we've always done them. That to me is an incredible inspiration. Is he a little crazy? Yeah, we're all a little crazy until we're understood.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. How do you balance all of this out? Balance this professional life, personal life, taking care of your own soul, all of these things. What gets you up every day to do that?
I'm better at it now. I'm getting better. I almost said I don't do it very well, but that would have been a melodramatic lie.
Yeah.
I didn't used to. I actually did a post today on social media that I found a box that I had put away about 5 years ago. I found a box that I put away in medical school when we moved to go away to school. It had my wedding picture in it. That wedding picture has sat in a box for 20 years. That to me is kind of horrific, when you think about it. That's not balance.
Yeah.
That's just rushing. That's hitting milestones. It's making sure you pass the exam, making sure you get this. When I'm a resident, I can take a breath. Sure, no. When I'm an attending, I can take a breath. No, you don't. You can't. You can, but again, it has to be cultivated. And that's why I need to grab people when they're still fresh out of residency and say, all right, listen, let's figure this out. Because I found an account with $13,000 in it that I didn't know I had.
Wow. So let's
Like,
say,
oh,
yeah, right. No, I get it. Let's say you have a dream tonight and you run into that version of you right before you put that picture in the box. And you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you give that version of you?
that hits hard. That hits really hard because over those 20 years, I've also developed cardiac disease, like lifestyle cardiac disease. I have a plaque that I was just diagnosed in November, and I didn't know it was there. It was probably larger 2 years ago. My health journey has improved drastically. But if I were to go back to that, gosh, that hypercritical, driven person that was 25 years ago, I would have said, take a breath. It's okay. If you get there a year later, it's okay.
Yeah.
Just take a breath. Hold your husband's hand. Call your grandparents. Carve out that time. That book up there that sits over my shoulder, it doesn't sit up there because I'd like to, tout the author. It sits up there to remind me that God willing, if I have the opportunity, I can make more money. I cannot make more time. And I
Yeah.
look back, it's 25 years of rushing.
Yeah. So, of everything that you've done and accomplished up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
Being a mom,
Yeah.
and not just being a mom, that part's biological and fairly simple in the scheme of things,
Yeah.
but raising an 11-year-old who feels safe to express who he is in our home.
So, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you family, friends, everyone that you teach, clients, colleagues, everyone around you, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's a hell of a question,
That's the therapy question.
right?
Yeah.
Send me a bill. Um,
Man.
right. My perception of me is ambitious, driven. That part, that part's to me is sort of obvious, but craving focus, craving literally buying back that time, asking for help, because that's new for me, but craving that, allowing people to grow so we can achieve their dreams and my dreams, but I don't have to do it all. It doesn't have to be on my plate. And that's and I say craving, but it's not, it's implementing because that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
Is we're building out the systems so that I can sit in that zone of genius and do the things that I am best at and help other people do the things that they're best at.
If you walked into a room with all of the patients that you've worked on and helped and that are alive on this planet, and you could get in front of a podium and tell them one of the funnest things about your life that they would have never guessed or understood, whether it's something you like to do, an adventure you went on, just something purely fun that would humanize who you are, what would you tell them?
I would probably tell them that I'm in pajamas at 4 p.m. if I have the choice.
There you go. That's it. That's the
Yep.
answer. So we get off this call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go anywhere in the history of time and see one event with your own eyes. Where are you going to go?
I had to decide to think big or to think small, which is big. I would go back to my grandmother's bedside as she passed away.
Oh, yeah. What about historically? What about another one?
Big thing. Let's go big. That was big, but
Yeah, it is. That was way bigger than history, but yeah.
yeah, that was a snippet of my own history. Back in time to see anything. I would sit and again, this is coming bubbling up because I don't prepare by design.
Yeah.
I would sit in Steve Jobs' garage
Yeah. Yeah.
because that when again it's that taking an idea and he is a true visionary, right? Wasn't great with systems, but listen, here's what we want to create. Let's do this. And to watch that brain work, or Walt Disney, and sit in his office with Mortimer with his little janky looking mouse. Thank goodness we changed that. But, just those just to sit and to watch them develop, or see the building of Disney World, for example. To go back in late 60s, early 70s, and to see that being built and then know today what it looks like and what it's become, where we can go and all be kids.
You know what's interesting about you saying that? I literally just an hour ago was talking to someone in Florida about they live inland and why. And I went to Orlando this summer and it's because of the hurricanes. Disney and all of them knew not to get close to the water. But I was talking about how before I went, I was reading a book about Walt Disney grew up in Marceline, north of Kansas City, and spent a lot of time in Kansas City. And he used to go to a place called Electric Park, and it's no longer, it's way, way, way gone, but it was an amusement park, and that's where he got the ideas. The lighting, the way everything was spaced, the fluidity, the way that it all happened. And I kept thinking about that. I can't believe that this little town of Kansas City hatched this massive dream. And it wasn't just that he was incubated here just because he watched the design of the roaring plains of the 20s, the roaring Paris that had jazz clubs and all of this activity. And that's where he took it and gave the world. It's weird, very weird.
Yeah. And it's a little town.
I know.
In little town, it's just one little spark.
Yeah.
My
I
Disney
remember.
fans forget that.
Yeah, I know. And there was a museum there in Disney World where they had his desk from Marceline and he put his name in it, carved his name in it. And it was like a part of him did that just because that was his ego. He was like, this is going to be remembered. And of course, it is remembered.
Right? Is
It's
it
huge.
remembered? Well,
Yeah.
it's funny can you say that because, it was his ego. And I recently was on a coaching call and somebody said, you have to have delusional goals. And that's true. If you want to have an impact, and it's not about, I want to be the best, blah, blah, blah. I think, no, it's that need to create. Not everybody has that, thank goodness, but thank goodness some of us do.
Yeah, really. And that's the weird thing, even with like, no matter how you feel politically or otherwise about what's going on with Elon, just the fact that he really genuinely believes that there's going to be a colonization of another planet.
Yeah.
I mean, we come from this mentality that we're just going to walk on the moon, hang out, and come back home. Put a
Right.
flag that's going to be in zero gravity. See you later. No, this is like we're going to get up here and have a Starbucks in the middle of Mars. You're going to sip coffee on a Martian planet. So it's wild. And we do. We need those people that just definitely are insane, that are the Van Goghs of the world that give us the color we need. So it's a good thing. Um,
Exactly.
so if anyone wants to hire you, reach out. They have questions, any other good business, where do they go?
Yep. They can go to Dr. Moe Coaching, MOE.com,
Okay.
or find me on Instagram, Dr. Moe Gibbons.
Okay. Dr. Gibbons, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. It's been delightful.
Thank you, Joe. Great
Thank you.
time.
Absolutely.